Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with 1 week to go until the Star Trek Section 31 made for streaming movie drops. And in preparation, I am joined by Joel here to recap the on-screen history of Star Trek Section 31. And I'm excited to see there's an audience already chatting away, ready for us to get going. So, Joel, I think we can go ahead and get the show started.
Okay.
I'm Fatheree.
I'm Joel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 315th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight is our Star Trek Section 31 history lesson. We are going to recap the on-screen history of Star Trek Section 31. So I think this is an exciting time to take a look back at the controversial organization in Star Trek. But we do have the made-for-streaming movie with Michelle Yeoh coming in a week.
1 week.
So there's never been a better time to go back and reflect back on 31's use in the universe. And if you don't have time to go brush yourself up on all of the Section 31 episodes, that's okay. Joel and I have been studying our Star Trek. I think I've watched in the last week, I've watched every single episode that even mentions Section 31. So I feel very prepared to talk about this right now. And even try to explain some of the perceived inconsistencies. That's one thing that I think Joel and I are going to try to do tonight is try to see if we can make it all make sense. Because it's been depicted different ways on different shows over the years. But I feel now that I kind of have like a good way to kind of I don't know, what would be like a good Larry Nemechek expression here? Massage the canon or what have you. But
canon smoothing. And
yeah, canon smoothing.
He does, yeah.
But I think we can make it all make sense, at least for now. We'll see what the future holds. But
well, yeah, there's always that.
We got a lot of ground to cover, so we'll try to move as fast as we can. But
Just like the Boimler Section 31 walk. Just gotta,
yeah, to conserve energy, right?
yes, exactly.
But I'm curious if other people have comments on 31. Please, folks in the live audience, chat away, or people watching or listening to this later, leave a comment and let us know how you feel about Section 31 and some of these specifics we're going to get into. I do want to start things off by giving a huge thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make the show possible. So thank you so very much. Starfleet So Hell, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quarks Bar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Benjanium, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, and our anonymous supporters. And if you are watching us live on Friday, I want to remind everyone that we do monthly Patreon watch parties, and the next one is happening tomorrow, Saturday, January 18th. And keeping it on theme, we are going to be watching the original Section 31 episode, the first appearance of the organization, at least that we know of. You know, who knows who all in Star Trek was actually a part of Section 31, but the Deep Space Nine episode Inquisition that also gave us Bill Sadler's character Sloan.
Yes.
So that's going to be at 3:30 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. You can come into the Patreon as little as $2 a month to attend those watch parties, and there are additional perks if you can afford to be more generous. We do really appreciate our patrons. And in other news, next week, when Section 31 drops on Friday, Joel and I will actually be out of town. We will be at Star Trek San Francisco, the home of Star Trek, of Starfleet Command, of Starfleet Academy, of a lot of Star Trek touchstones. I've never been there before. What about you, Joel? Have you ever been to San Francisco?
I've never been to California, yeah.
So
I've been
it'll
to
be
West
the
Coast. I've been to Washington and British Columbia, but not down there.
it'll be a new frontier to explore for you. But,
I can't say I
Rachel,
was born there like Sulu, so that'd be a good
Rachel,
entrance.
who ironically is in California right now, but she'll be back home by then, and she will be hosting a first reaction stream for Section 31 on Friday. So be sure to watch it as soon as you can Friday, and then tune in to Tex-Trek for Rachel's live first reaction stream.
Yes.
Oh, and also another cool part about being a patron is that you are invited to participate in those streams as well.
Oh yeah.
And
They're not usually on Friday, but next week they are. So.
following that, next week, the Friday after next week, actually on the 31st, very appropriate, January 31st, we will have our deep dive discussion on Section 31, the made for streaming movie. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never tried to put together one of those shows for a movie. It's always been
Because there
episodes.
hasn't been a movie since Tex-Trek started, right?
Right, since we
Even
got
though
started
Tex-Trek's been around. Episode
shortly
31.5 right now, but
Yeah. We started shortly after Star Trek Beyond, so this will be the first movie we've ever covered. But we've done like 2-part episodes before, so it won't be. It'll be kind of like that.
Yeah, it'll work out.
But just to give an overhead of some of the episodes we're going to be talking about, we're going to start with Deep Space Nine, with the episodes Inquisition, and then the 2 Season 7 episodes, the crazy Latin titled one, Inter Arma Enum Silent Legis, and Extreme Measures. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of Star Trek Enterprise. There's a little Section 31 activity in Season 4. Also Star Trek Into Darkness, and then a lot of Discovery Season 2. And then we're going to end things with some Star Trek Picard and some Star Trek Lower Decks. So that's going to cover all of the known uses of Section 31 on screen.
Yes, I have not gone and read all the novels.
And there's a lot. The novels love Section 31.
Yeah, I'm sure they're great, but I'm behind on the novels.
And I know, like, David Mack has done some, like, really big, heavy lifting with the novels. A lot of stuff I haven't read, but it sounds really cool. And it also sounded cool to the Star Trek Discovery writers, because they borrowed a lot of that stuff for their Section 30. When Dave and I interviewed David Mack last year, he pointed that out, that he was basically an unpaid consultant on Star Trek Discovery, with as much as they borrowed from him.
Control is from him.
Yeah, not only that, but, like, he fleshed out the Shenzhou crew in his novel, and then he also invented Control. So both the first 2 seasons of Discovery really borrowed a lot from David Mack. But I know I've talked about Section 31 a lot in the past, and people who have been longtime listeners of the show I'm sure have heard me say this many times. But me personally, I love the idea of exploring Section 31. My preference is that they are the bad guys, though. I think that that should be the message in Star Trek, that having this shady, off-the-books organization is a bad idea and not a good thing. I think it's a fun storytelling device, though, to put your protagonist in that situation of, what do you do if there's a bad guy, but he's also, like, on your side and he can help you out, and kind of the temptation and the moral decisions that you have to make dealing with that, I think is very interesting.
Yeah, who will watch you sleep except Section 31?
I know there's a lot of people who they don't want Section 31 to be in Star Trek at all. They think it kind of betrays the nature of the quote unquote Gene Roddenberry utopia.
But as we'll talk about tonight, it varies a lot what they do on the various shows. from being kind of just an intelligence agency, really an enterprise, to like later regime toppling, just like
Yeah.
terrible things in DS9, and then yeah, it really varies. So
Well, let's start there with Deep Space Nine. We're gonna go through things not in the in universe chronological order, but in the order that these things came out, more or less. But starting off, the Deep Space Nine depictions of Section 31 that introduced us to this organization. The season 6 episode Inquisition, which was where the agent or operative, whatever you want to call him, but Sloan is trying to recruit Dr. Bashir into Section 31. So that whole episode is just kind of like the trial of Dr. Bashir that he's unwillingly participating in, but just to see if he qualifies to be in 31, if he can be trusted, if he's truly not a Dominion asset after spending time in the POW camp.
yeah, you become a POW and then you get blamed for things later. I mean, that's just not nice.
Yeah, but
He was just screwing with them, I think.
Well, there could be some, Manchurian candidate stuff going on with the Dominion. I can't blame Section 31 for being a little, cautious there. They're probably, so paranoid because they do such immoral, shady things. They assume everyone else is doing that.
Yeah.
The funny.
They also show up in like this, SS kind of all black uniforms, and they're just like, we're going to be intimidating. So, maybe just wear a bow tie, Sadler.
Yeah, like
It opens more doors.
I guess like the realistic thing is like you have to know you look like bad guys. Maybe they think they look like badass and tactical though.
Yeah, but they're not in like equipment. It's a uniform, and it's all black leather, and then
Well,
it's not he's going on a raid or something. It's just he's just showing up in Bashir's bedroom again. Well, for the first time, one of many. But
I mean, some people would be excited for random
It's
strangers
true.
to show
It's
up
true,
covered
but,
in black
consent-
leather in the middle of the
consent
night.
Section
but-
31. It makes
Yeah.
it better.
Yeah, there's definitely like no consent given from Dr. Bashir's end of things in this episode. But the funny thing to me is that this episode originally was going to be nothing like how it finally turned out. It was originally going to be a comedy about Bashir going to some medical conference, and while he's there, his runabout gets towed for parking illegally, and he has to deal with some bureaucrats to get his runabout back. And then it became like a much more darker story about Section 31 putting him through these trials. And it's something that Ira Stephen Bear, the showrunner of DS9, called dealing with the quote-unquote weasels under the coffee table. And when I read that, I was like, what the hell does that mean? And he's actually, he's misquoting the British playwright Harold Pinter.
Pinter, I think.
Pinter? Is that how you say it? I see it written, but I've never like heard it said. But
They talk about him on MST3K every now and then.
I'm not really that familiar with his work, but I'm familiar with his politics, and he seems like a pretty cool dude. No longer with us.
One movie that from one of his plays.
Which one was it?
The Birthday Party. It stars what's his name? The guy who was in Jaws, who plays Shaw, gives the big speech.
Mm-hmm.
He's in that, and it's small scale. It's just people in a house, just average people talking. But then, yeah, there's weirdness going on between them. There's not a big overarching, explosions or that kind of thing. But it's very interesting, and it was pretty unique. And then I think he also helped with a lot of other movies. Like I was going through Letterboxd and I saw he wrote the screenplay for the 1990 version of The Handmaid's Tale. I saw that. I mean, it's based on the Atwood book, of course.
Oh.
So he's done a lot. He didn't just do plays and write movies based on his plays. He also worked for Hollywood, which I wasn't aware of the extent. But
Well, it sounds like a lot of his stories were kind of critical of modern society, and what he meant when he said it actually wasn't weasels under the coffee table, but someone asked him, "What is your work about?" and he gave the answer, "Weasels under the wine cabinet," which I guess some people misinterpreted as like, oh, he's talking about like those secret ugly parts of the world that we don't see but must be there somewhere. He's actually said like since then that like, no, I was just giving a Gib answer. I was just trying to say something ridiculous when someone said, what is your work about? I just made up something like the weasels under the wine cabinet. But
it makes sense to me when I heard that, though, because his plays are about average people, and then the plot reveals things about, I mean, he's English, things about class and, post-war Britain and stuff like that, but through the words of, actions of ordinary people.
Yeah, and much like Star Trek itself has been a vehicle to explore society. It's a show set in the future involving all these alien races, but it's actually about today's humans, is what Star Trek is about.
So Star Trek's about the weasels in the warp drive. Exactly.
Sure. That sounds like it should be like the title of a Lower Decks episode if we ever get another season, The Weasels Under the Warp Drive.
We have to have one now. Sorry, Paramount Plus, you're required.
But this episode, Inquisition, it plays out, I guess, like a psychological thriller, and Bashir doesn't know exactly what's going on. You get like that reveal that he's been in a holodeck this entire time. He was abducted on his way to a medical conference, so no one expected him to be there. So to be on the station, so no one noticed he was gone. But when Sloan explains Section 31 to him and invites him into the organization, he says that the official designation is Section 31, but they're another branch of Starfleet intelligence. And I think it's interesting here, Julian Bashir says never heard of it when he hears the word Section 31. Yeah. And Sloan says we keep a low profile and that they search out for threats to the Federation and deal with them quietly. And it's interesting here, this is very different from what we will see in Star Trek Discovery, but I think we can kind of explain this and make it make sense. But Sloan says, we do not submit reports or ask for permission, an autonomous department authorized as part of the original Starfleet Charter 200 years earlier. And we see some of that in Enterprise when we see it existing 200 years earlier.
That fits pretty well, I think.
Before the Federation. So there is a time earlier when they would have submitted reports and had like admirals that they answered to, but clearly not during the time of Sloan in the 24th century.
Yes,
and one of the recurring things with Section 31 that keeps coming up a lot is something that Sloan says here, that they deal with things that endanger the very survival of the Federation. And he tells Bashir, if you knew how many lives we save, you would agree the ends do justify the means. That's something that's repeated with other Section 31 agents that we'll talk about.
And it also, that comes back, because that's also sort of something you get in spy movies, too, where you're like, you always hear stuff like that.
Yeah, so the Deep Space Nine writers, they were really into kind of the spy and espionage genre. They kind of
obviously
infected Dr. Bashir with that. They made him a James Bond fanboy. That's what he does in his free time, is he goes and he plays James Bond video games, basically, in the Holosuite.
Brought up by Sloan, too. He's like, you want this.
You love secrets. Yeah, he tells them that in a later episode. But I am a man of secrets, and you're into, like, this is literally what you do in your free time. You hang out with Garrick, and then you play James Bond. So
yeah.
But that episode ends. I remember watching this back in when would it have been, 1998, and thinking it would be really cool if they followed it up. But it ends with Cisco telling Bashir, the Section 31 sounds like they're very dangerous. We can't have this rogue organization. It's so crazy to think that like Starfleet or Federation citizens would be involved with this, and we need to. Next time you see Sloan, go ahead and go along with them so that we can learn more about 31 and try to bring it down. It was a fun tease set up for the stuff that they would explore in season 7. So I remember really looking forward to that.
This episode too, this one, it's not, but it seems so much like a regular Brandon Braga episode on TNG, with the sort of mind screwing thing, and then it's not, but it has that sort of overarching thing.
Yeah, like, kind of that weird psychological stuff.
Because in his TNG episodes he did a lot. He didn't only do those, but he did a lot of those.
Well, I think my favorite Section 31 episode of all time, though, is the second episode that uses them. Inter Arma Inum Silent Legis, the long ass title that a lot of people made fun of. I've heard like Ron Moore say that like the Voyager writers made fun of him for like coming up with this long ass Deep Space Nine episode title, and
But at least it's unique. They're not going to name another episode that. Like,
but it means in times of war the law falls silent. And Ron Moore said he lucked out. He just happened to like go to the bookstore and he saw a book about like the Civil War, and it talked about like when habeas corpus was suspended during the Civil War, and it was like, oh, inter arma inum silent legis, which I've also heard that's the incorrect Latin phrasing, but I don't know. I'm not a I know very little about the Latin language.
I took a year of Latin, but I remember nothing.
That's what everyone I talk to who took Latin, they're like, yeah, I took it and I don't remember it at all because it never comes up. It is very much a dead language.
Yeah, you gotta go to yeah. You gotta go to Rome and go to, the Vatican City to speak Latin, because, that's it.
But speaking of going to Rome, they go to Romulus in this episode, which is based on Rome, and the story was also based on a spy novel called "The Spy Who Came In from the Cold," which was a very similar story, except it's set in East Berlin, and it has to deal with a kind of a double agent type character who appears to be like a really bad Soviet, but he's actually someone who's sympathetic to the British, who they have to try to make sure stays undercover or something like that. I've never read the book. I've just skimmed the Wikipedia page, but
I know there's a movie. I haven't seen that either.
it sounds potentially like a fun story to see in that setting. But I love the use of it in Star Trek, and this is kind of the follow up to the last episode. Sloan appears in Bashir's quarters, and he says, "I have a mission for you." He says, "I have an assignment for you." Same thing that we'll hear in Star Trek Enterprise. It's also good scripting when he says, "Your mission is to gather data about the Romulan leadership. In essence, we want you to take the pulse of their government." No pun intended. I like that because he's asking a doctor to take the pulse of the government. But it's another medical conference. Bashir is being sent to Romulus to speak at a medical conference, and he tells Cisco about this, and Cisco tells him, "Okay, Ross has ordered me to order you to go along with Sloan." And we don't know it, but it turns out that Ross is aware of Sloan's activities. Yes. I like that relationship between Ross and Sloan, though, because it shows that Section 31, at this point in time, is not part of the Starfleet command structure. It's something that is powerful and mysterious even to a high-ranking admiral like Ross, but he feels like with the wartime stuff going on, he is forced to work
with them.
Yeah. So I like
tool.
I like the Boy Scout Ross, and they even like dial up his Boy Scoutness when he drinks some Romulan ale and he starts like coughing, like he's like, "Oh, have you actually never partaked in Romulan ale before?" It's kind of like
it was illegal.
Yeah, it's like he was like the good kid who like never smoked pot or something, and because it was illegal. So they dial up his Boy Scoutiness just to make that twist reveal more impactful. But there's some fun use of the universe here with the Romulans we see. They bring back it's a different actor, but they bring back Neural was the Romulan in Unification 1 and 2. He's gone from Pro-Council to Praetor. Koval, the chairman of the Tal Shiar, we meet him. He's played by John Fleck, who would go on to play Silic in Enterprise. And they also recast Senator Kretak. So these Romulan politicians keep getting recast by different actors. Maybe they're getting like plastic surgeries to make their appearance change or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is a fun episode. It really throws the audience a few twists and turns. They do like that reveal when Bashir is captured by the Tal Shiar, and he spills the beans. He says everything about that he knows, at least about Section 31, but he tells them look, I believe Section 31 is here on Romulus. I think that they're trying to assassinate the chairman of the Tal Shiar, and he tells them like, don't get mad at the entire Federation though. The Section 31 thing, they have no official standing within the Federation. So Deep Space Nine clearly depicted Section 31 as this rogue agency that did not answer to anyone, that had just been operating secretly for 200 years.
Themselves these missions, And they didn't have their own starships that we know of, and space stations like Discovery and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, when Sloan is captured by or seemingly captured by the Tal Shiar, we later learn that he's working with the Tal Shiar chairman, but Sloan is dragged in there in front of the Romulan Continuing Council, and they tell the Continuing Council, that is Koval, the chairman of the Tal Shiar, he says, "Oh, we found this guy Sloan. He claimed to Dr. Bashir to be part of Section 31, but it turns out he's full of shit. There is no Section 31. He is a single soul actor. He's done all of this stuff individually, and he's actually trying to get revenge for the Admiral Fujisaki, deputy chief of Starfleet Intelligence, who died of food poisoning. Sloan was the protege of this admiral. He thought that Koval, chairman of the Tal Shiar, assassinated Admiral Fujisaki, so he concocted this entire scheme to get revenge on Koval, and then Sloan is seemingly killed by the Tal Shiar.
Yes, disintegrated. Yes.
And so I remember actually watching that for the first time and thinking like, oh wow, I guess Section 31 was just this dude Sloan. And then Bashir has that conversation with Ross where Bashir's a little smarter than me. I guess that augment brain pays off. But he tells he has that fun conversation with Ross where Ross takes the badge off and Bashir.
Badge. I don't know what that does, but makes it not
just to show that like it's off the record. It's just a shorthand for the audience who's grown up watching cop shows. But the language there, just Bashir is just like, "Where's Sloan?" And Ross just says, "How did you know?" But we learned that Koval had been supplying intel to Starfleet for a year, and Ross doesn't know how long he's been working with Section 31. So I think that's fun. It's funny because shortly after this, we know Starfleet security will be infiltrated by Commodore O and the Tal Shiar. So it's like...
So Section 31 focuses on external threats, not counterintelligence.
Yeah.
And they probably should have done counterintelligence instead.
So I kind of want to know when did O take over? Like when did the Tal Shiar take over Starfleet security? Because it's like who's in charge here? Is it like Section 31 has infiltrated the Romulans, or have like the Romulans infiltrated Starfleet?
I mean, yeah, they're good at that stuff. So I always took that was O was there for a long time, like came up the ranks pretty much. But that's not really in there. But
Lieutenant DT in the live audience said they did Senator Kretak dirty, and yeah, so Senator Kretak, who's fairly innocent, Ross is like, well, she's a patriotic Romulan. We never would have been able to trust her. She's only being cool because it's convenient for her to be cool. But I mean, she is at the very least sent off to prison. Likely, I think, probably executed. Just knowing what we know about Romulan justice.
Probably. Yeah, because they're doing they're trying to play 4D chess about the next threat after the Dominion.
Right, because that's the thing that Bashir says.
We get rid of the Dominion. They're over there in the other quadrant.
Yeah, this war isn't even over.
Big threat. Klingons are rebuilding. They go through the things, which is parallels. Churchill said stuff like that at the end of World War II. It was like obviously the Soviets were going to be the problem. We should go to war right now. He said, which would have been insane. Luckily, they kicked him out, but.
The DS9 writers, though, I think they were basing a lot of the Dominion War stuff on World War II, and obviously. I think that was very much the end, because immediately after World War II, you have the Cold War.
Yep.
So I think that's what they were saying. Okay, the Romulans are always kind of the Cold War allegory, anyways. So it'd be like they would have resumed that.
And we didn't talk about one of my favorite reveals in the whole episode is just early on when they're going to the conference. They're not there yet. Sloan just appears as like the cartographer, just to screw with Bashir. Really, he could be on there and not talk to him at the party, but he just appears and it's like, oh, and it's just screwing with Bashir at that.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Glorious. It's glorious
because he's just like he's just pretending to be like this nice, friendly dude who's like, oh, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but let me come over here and explain Shakespeare quotes to you and stuff like that.
Never say die. Yeah, that's what they're explaining. Yeah. And he dresses Bashir down for almost, for looking surprised. I'm just like, well, geez, Sloan. Whose fault is
But the whole function of Dr. Bashir in this episode was, I guess, to get Senator Kretak to turn against Koval, or like spy on him or creep
Yes.
on him, get her in trouble so that she doesn't make it to the continuing council, and instead their inside man Koval will.
They needed someone who really believed that's what was needed, and it wasn't faking. And but plus, he's augmented. I don't think Section 31 knew that they couldn't use the mind thing on him. I don't think anyone knew that. So.
Oh yeah, the Romulan mind probes, and those come back in Extreme Measures, the next episode we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, they established that here, and it's interesting that Section 31 is so invested and so interested in working with augments. That's something that we see again in Enterprise, I guess. But
Yep. I just think they don't care at all. Which you probably shouldn't care about the augments so much,
but I can see why they would consider them, useful.
yeah, any tool they're going to use every available tool. So for sure.
And at the end, Sloane tells Bashir that we needed a good man like Bashir to go to Kretak, but he also says that good men like Bashir are the reason why 31 exists. So that's kind of like their thinking, is that like yeah, we do all this nasty stuff so that you good people that think you're above that can stay safe.
But that also stabs him in the back, because that really needles Bashir leading up for the next episode.
Right. So then in season, do you want to move on to the Extreme Measures?
Yep. Extreme Measures.
So the season 7, 10 episode arc that ends the series at the end, they're dealing with the changeling virus. There's that episode, When It Pours, when Bashir is talking to Starfleet Command, trying to request Odo's medical records from when he visited Earth, and they keep withholding that from him. He is, looking for a cure. This is stuff that will come back up in Star Trek Picard. But Bashir concludes that Section 31 created the changeling virus and introduced it to the changeling population through Odo. It's interesting here to talk about one of the things they mentioned, that the guy that he talks to, Commander Hilliard, part of the reason why he might be such a jerk, O'Brien speculates it might be because this is shortly after the Breen attack on Starfleet HQ. They make a big deal out of that, by the way. It's the first time anyone actually attacked Starfleet HQ. And so that the Starfleet brass are a little shook, and maybe not being their ideal selves with some of these wartime choices they're making.
We'll do the genocide then, because we're all upset.
That's an interesting thing to think about. Do we want like a Starfleet command in Star Trek? Do we want a Starfleet command that is capable of doing such bad, terrible things?
It's the big question, yeah. Should the Federation exist if genocide is the only way to preserve it? I mean, yeah, it's a question. You could see why some people would try it, right or wrong. But yeah, it's just an open-ended question.
Some of my favorite stuff in this episode is when Bashir and O'Brien are shooting darts, just talking back and forth, and Bashir is so frustrated with Section 31. He says, "This organization, this thing that slithered its way into the heart of the Federation, it has to be destroyed." So here we get it like very, very clearly. The heroes of the show are saying like, yes, Section 31 are the bad guys. O'Brien agrees with him. He says, "Well, you won't get any argument from me on that." So I do like that approach to like treating Section 31 as the villains of the story.
Yes.
And Bashir is thinking like there has to be at least 73 people. He does like the math with his augment brain.
Yeah,
he concludes.
Yeah. Wait, Kate is asking if you have more slides.
I do for the other. I have like one slide for each show.
Okay,
sorry.
Just so everyone knows in the chat. I wasn't sure either. So.
But maybe I should have had like more than that. Sorry.
It's enough to. We got to watch all these. It's a lot of episodes.
If people are tired of looking at Sloan, he'll change soon when we get to Star Trek Enterprise.
Just imagine waking up and seeing that. That's what we want you to think about.
But that was Sloan's MO. You know, he would appear in the chair in front of Bashir's bed, and that's how they trap him. They use
He's
there's
predictable. Yeah, he shouldn't have kept doing that. He should have
varied it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I like that idea of of Sloan being too cocky to expect that. But
He did not expect Bashir to go there, but I think it was because he was so needled by him in the last episode that he used his augment brain to figure something out for Odo, but also just to trap Sloan.
But yeah, they get him to show up by reporting to Starfleet. Oh, we found a cure to the changeling virus that you weren't helping us work on. We found it anyways. Knowing that Sloan would probably show up, or someone from 31 would show up to destroy it, and Bashir concludes like, well, if they're able to destroy it, then they must know what a cure would look like. They must know what a cure would be, which I think that's a little contrived and convenient, but it does work out for him. When they capture him, I like the line from Sloan. I misread you. I thought you were just a misguided idealist, but you're a dangerous man. People like you would destroy the Federation if given a chance. Fortunately, there are people like me who will die to protect it. And then he activates the neurodepolarizing suicide device in his head.
Yes.
And with more psychological thriller type stuff when they have to go into the mind of this dying man.
It's the cyanide capsule in the tooth from the spy movies, yeah. Except more sci-fi.
Yeah, it's neurodepolarizing to make it science fiction-y. That stuff it's very interesting. It's very surreal. The kind of I mean, it's convenient that it's all like on the station sets and on like the Defiant sets.
They mention that too. It's like, why does this look like Deep Space Nine?
But yeah, but part of Sloan, he's actually glad to be killed. Like he's when he sees them inside of his mind, he's all like smiling and happy. Yeah, he has like that big celebration with his friends and family. There's like the depiction of his wife, Jessica, who says being married to him was a living hell. And he gives like that speech about how like, I cheated you all out of my life when I was alive, and I cheated myself, but now I'm dead, and it's not a tragedy, it's a celebration. And so that's what life in Section 31 was like, according to Deep Space Nine. It was actually quite miserable.
Yeah, Sloan's kids need a lot of therapy. And hope the wife probably too.
The trailers for Section 31 shows Michelle Yeoh having a lot more fun, like clubbing and stuff, and not the miserable happy to die character that Sloan was.
I'm guessing her character isn't gonna watch people sleep passively. She might show up like that, but not for long.
But they do that thing where when Sloan tries to tell them the cure, it comes out all garbled because there is a bigger part of him that has like that sense of duty to Section 31 that like won't let him say it. Then eventually like another Sloan appears in the mindscape and murders the friendly Sloan.
It's like good Kirk, evil Kirk thing going on.
Yeah, the duality of man. I guess we're exploring that too in the mind of Sloan. But the duality, that's something that comes up in Discovery with Ash Tyler.
Yes.
But we see like the office, Sloan's office that has all the papers and pads.
Just pads everywhere.
But all kinds of Section 31 secrets, and that was a cool concept. This is not the Section 31 headquarters that we see in Discovery. This is Sloan says, and I guess like who knows if he's telling the truth, but I like to believe this. I think it's kind of fun if there is no Section 31 building headquarters. It's just a select group of people who know these secrets, and because that's Bashir is like, this is our only opportunity to learn these. Like, look at this, Miles. They had a man in President Jerish Inyo's cabinet. Oh, look, they have operatives on Kronos.
Yep, with Martok. Yep.
But it was a Sloan trying to keep them trapped in his mind, so
Until
that
he dies.
so he takes them with him. But they do get the cure. That is how eventually Odo is able to cure the rest of the Great Link. Events that they talk about later in Star Trek Picard.
It sets it all up.
But yeah, I think Sloan was a worthy adversary for big brain augment Dr. Bashir.
Yes. And his
and
buddy
again,
who he likes more than his wife.
yeah, we get that conversation in this episode.
Classic. And also, would they have to tell Cisco what they were up to? That is just that scene is gold. You did what? Yeah, it's just having to tell the emissary. Yeah, you set it up so Section 31's coming, and you're gonna try and trap them. Good times.
So I think to this day, like I do like Deep Space Nine's handling of Section 31 more than anything else, but I'm not against it, coming back and being used, and I like a lot of this other stuff I'm going to talk about. But before we move on to Enterprise, Joel, did you have any other thoughts on Deep Space Nine's Section 31?
No, I do really like it here, and there's a nice little, they set it up and then they finish it. I mean, it's not forever, but as far as Sloane and what's going on with Odo, which I mean they will address later in Picard actually, but yeah, it was really good and pretty much fulfilled everything they set up.
Ira Stephen Bear said that if there had been a season 8, it would have been about going to Earth and having to clean up house on Earth and deal with Section 31. And that is when they did the DS9 documentary and they came up with a hypothetical season 8. That it involved Section 31 as well. So.
Yep.
But Deep Space Nine did tell us that 31 are the bad guys.
Yes.
So let's move on to Star Trek Enterprise. There's a Section 31 operative named Harris, who it turns out that Malcolm Reed is a Section 31 agent.
Yes.
It's fun in these episodes. The 4 episodes that Harris appears in, he's in the Klingon augment virus 2-parter Affliction and Divergence, and then the other 2-parter at the end, Demons and Terra Prime, that kind of wrap up the show before the dreaded series finale that everyone hates. But they never actually say Section 31, except for one time when they're quoting Article 14, Section 31.
Not the organization name, but the document sections. Where's the names from? I think Arthur was asking that earlier.
Reed says things like your section and stuff like that, but yeah, we learn here that it was set up before the events of Star Trek Enterprise, that Reed was a member. So in these episodes, Affliction and Divergence, those episodes, they open with Dr. Phlox being abducted when he's leaving his favorite Chinese food restaurant in San Francisco. We should see if there is a Madame Chang's in San Francisco, by the way. Like,
boop, boop, boop. Yeah, I'll do that later.
But Phlox is abducted by these Rigelian proxies that they're actually working with. It's kind of a joint operation between Section 31 and some Klingons under the command of a General Krell.
Yes.
And the Rigelians that transport Phlox to the Klingons are killed. The Klingons need him to stop the virus that was created when they were doing experiments on human augment DNA, trying to create a race of Klingon augment soldiers, and all the augments that they make break down and die in agony. So not only does it not work, but one of the experimental Klingons was infected with a virus that mutates, and it's going to spread throughout a bunch of different Klingon worlds if Phlox can't help them find a cure. So in those episodes, Reed is he's called to like a shady meeting in the park with his old buddy Harris, who it's kind of like the Sloane Bashir thing. It's like, I have an assignment for you.
Yeah. Though he was a little more, at least Reed at one point volunteered.
Right. Yeah. Reed was on board with it.
Surprised, but it's been years, right, at this point?
Yeah, Reed tells Archer this is the first time he was acting for Section 31 while he'd been assigned to Enterprise. So the first time in the entire 4 seasons of the show that he was doing 31 stuff. But he tries to cover up who destroyed the Rigelian ships. He says, oh, it was Orion Raiders. And then Hoshi and T'Pol are like, no, it actually looks like it was Klingons, and Reed lied about this. So Archer throws Reed in the brig, and Reed won't talk to Archer. He won't tell him like why he was, tampering with evidence and stuff like that. So Archer figures out that Reed had talked to this guy Harris, and he demands to speak to him. So he contacts Harris, and Archer is all, he's pissed off about his doctor being abducted, and Harris tells him, well, Starfleet Charter Article 14, Section 31. We don't know exactly what it is. He doesn't quote it. I guess he paraphrases it. He just says there are a few lines that make allowances for bending the rules during time of extraordinary threat.
So if things are bad, we can do what we want. But yeah.
Yeah, and apparently they use that as a blank check to keep doing what they want for 200 years. But it's interesting. Harris also says that Reed has done good work for them over the years. So, and eventually, Reed does open up to Archer. He says, like, yeah, when I was a young ensign, it was exciting to do covert operations. And so I don't know what Reed was doing before Enterprise, but it definitely involves some Section 31 missions.
Yeah, what would an ensign do? Yeah, not as much. I guess be secret. No one expects the ensign.
There you go. Or everyone makes fun of the ensign, according to Discovery.
Lower deckers.
Or everyone picks on the ensign. But those two episodes, Affliction and Divergence, they end with Reed like breaking up with Harris. He's like no, I'm never gonna do any work for you again. I only take orders from Captain Archer and no one else, and he hangs up on him. That a few episodes later in Demons, he has to come crawling back to Harris. Well, I guess Archer orders Reed to do that,
but he doesn't want to though. He'll do it, but.
So this is the third to last episode of Star Trek Enterprise. It begins with the woman, this nurse, shows up to with a wound from a phase pistol and dies, giving the strand of hair from the baby to T'Pol, and says they're going to kill this baby. And then Phlox is like, oh, it looks like Trip and T'Pol have a baby who none of us know about, and that's weird. And it turns out this baby was created by the hate group Terra Prime.
Hate groups having babies. It's just not right.
Or manufacturing babies, even less right.
Yeah, with zero consent from the parents.
But it was Archer tells Reed to check in with Harris, see if he can find out any information on this. And Harris is pretty helpful in these episodes. He's like, oh yeah, that woman, she was a nurse who was part of Terra Prime. And
Section 31 is not evil here in Enterprise. It seems more like part of Starfleet intelligence and doing that kind of thing.
I mean, even with like the Klingon stuff, they were saying that they were trying to keep a stable Klingon empire. Yeah. That they didn't want the Klingons to get wiped out by this virus. Which
the way they got Phlox there was maybe not the best. I mean, maybe they could have ordered him there, and I don't know. But the actually what they were doing it was good. It was fine.
Yeah, or like Phlox tells the Klingons, like, you could have just, asked for us to help. Like, the interspecies medical exchange would have been willing to help, but yeah.
Klingons don't do that. Yeah. Instead,
we get that
blow up all their infected colonies and kill every colony.
Yeah, that was the that was the stakes in that episode. There's going to be a Klingon on Klingon massacre.
Just millions. Yeah, it's just.
We get what's his name? Peter Weller's RoboCop as that character Paxton, the head of Terra Prime, who created the baby, and he takes over the comet deflector ray on Mars.
Yes, which is a great. I love that. It was a great use of something that would be there.
Yeah, that's what like the 22nd century solar system should look like in Star Trek, I think.
Yeah, I think. There's good world building.
Yeah, a lot of good choices there from Manny Koto and Star Trek Enterprise. I love Enterprise season 4.
Yeah, just in those 2 episodes, there's so much great moon stuff, then Mars, yeah.
But Harris is able to help. He advises Reed on how to infiltrate Paxton's base on Mars, and he tells him like, "Oh yeah, the terraforming on Mars has messed up the sensor. So if you take like a shuttle down and do it this way, you should be able to sneak up on the planet undetected." And but in that conversation, it sounds like if there had been like an Enterprise season 5, there would have been more Section 31 because by Reed, kind of coming crawling back to Harris, like asking for help. Harris tells him that this comes at a cost. Like if you're back in, you're back in. So, but
Like
I get
movies. I tried to get out. They keep dragging me back.
Harris is kind of nice though. He's probably like the nicest Section
He
31
definitely is.
character. He wishes Reed like good luck, there at the end. So
It does seem more like a reasonable intelligence agency at this point.
yeah, it's just kind of weird
making
that
speeches about how you don't understand. We have to do this evil. They're not doing any of that, and then
yeah, not as twisted and overtly evil as Sloan would
as
be.
Geek Filter in the audience is saying, maybe that's why the Kazinti aren't attacking. It's because of Section 31.
Oh yeah, well there were supposed to be like 5 wars before the original
this,
series, so. Was that Section 31 involvement, or were they covering it up? Who knows?
We need a show to tell us.
The funny thing is that Peter Wellers is Paxton here at the end of Star Trek Enterprise, and then almost immediately in Star Trek Into Darkness, he comes back as a different character, as Admiral Marcus.
Who is deeply involved with...
So Star Trek...
I'm glad they reused Peter Weller, because Into Darkness has its problems, but Peter Weller is not one of them.
Yeah, no, he gives a really good performance in there. My big problems with Star Trek Into Darkness is I just think there's like some dumb plot stuff and like those weird ass torpedoes. It's like Khan hides his people on torpedoes, and then like the ship can't go to warp because of the torpedoes, and there's a lot of like weird plot things in there. But I actually have a lot of respect for Star Trek Into Darkness and how they use Section 31. I think it was the best use of
lies. That's what just.
Oh yeah, that pissed a lot of people off.
If they hadn't done that, if there just would have been Harrison, Cumberbatch, he's great. He's a great actor, but he could just be Harrison. It'd be fine.
But I'll say this about the politics of Star Trek Into Darkness. It's some of like my favorite politics of any Star Trek movie, and the allegory they tell. It's very much an overt criticism of the Bush doctrine and the Bush reaction to 9/11, the preemptive war in Iraq, and it basically says like all of that stuff was terrible. That was the wrong way to go about any of this. And again, it's more of Section 31 being the bad guys. It's kind of weird here that Marcus, he's called the head of Starfleet, so I don't know if he's supposed to be the commander in chief of Starfleet, but
that was nebulous, yeah.
But he's also the head of Section 31, so
he's got 2 hats. Yay!
So my theory, part of the reason why things are so different in the Kelvin timeline is that Marcus doesn't become head of Starfleet in the Prime timeline. But after the Narada shows up and blows up the Kelvin, like maybe that Kelvin captain, maybe he was supposed to be the commander in chief at some point, but instead it ends up becoming Marcus, and he makes everything. The reason why the Kelvin timeline is so militant and martial, like they march around the academy in those military uniforms. I think I just blame all of that on Marcus. But I love that the Section 31 stuff, the shady stuff they're doing in the dark here by trying to bring Khan into 31 and prepare for a bigger war and stuff, and like that militarization that really bites them in the ass, and they pay a price for that. There's consequences. That's what I like most about Star Trek Into Darkness, is that there are consequences for the Section 31 stuff. For Like Khan, I talked about this a little bit last week with Dave when we were talking about Section 31, but Khan is he's Operation Paperclip, right? He's like when the United States government took Nazis from World War II and put them to work. But yeah,
he's V2s, so we need rocket scientists. Yeah.
But he is this war criminal from the past, who's been brought in, and it turns out that was like a big mistake. It bites them in the ass. It's also like the United States empowering Bin Laden to fight the Soviet. You know, like we're going to
Afghanistan, yeah.
empower this radical Saudi guy operating in Afghanistan. He's fighting the Soviets for us, though. So we're going to build him up, and then what do you know? There's a terrorist attack against us, like with the bombing of the Section 31 base. And also like that, like I blame Marcus for the reason why Section 31 has this huge facility underground in London.
Yeah, right in plain sight there.
But yeah, so like, I know a lot of people give Star Trek Into Darkness a hard time, but like I really respect the hell out of the politics and the real life allegory and critiques that they're putting in here.
It has some great things. It's just always poisoned by the "it's not Khan." I mean, I would sit and read IO9 for like a year before the movie came out, and like every week there's like, "Oh, it's not Khan." And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I can't blame anyone for being pissed about that.
He could have just not commented and been like, "Well, you'll see," but you know, JJ could have.
Or just cast someone who like I think that was also like kind of the weird thing is like it's such like a whitewashing. I think if the movie just came out like a few years later, they would have known better than to do that.
Yeah.
The comic books.
He wasn't going to be Indian. He could at least be Mexican, like you know, Ricardo.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true, but like at some point I heard that that they had considered Benicio del Toro for a role in this movie.
He could. He's a great actor.
So I think he would have been an interesting Khan. But the comic books had a good explanation that when Khan assumed the alias John Harrison, he underwent plastic surgery, and they figured out that you know, Northern European is like as far away from Indian as you can get, so that's what he's going to look like.
Because somebody would recognize his face, a history buff, just like on Space Seed.
But yeah, and I see Aaron in the live audience is talking about like the death resurrection with the triple blood, and like yeah, I thought that stuff was pretty dumb too. But as dumb as I think that is, I do love when Spock speaks up about the ethics and legality of their mission to go you know, shoot their torpedoes into Klingon territory. Like I love that like Spock questions that, and we get kind of like that traditional Star Trek moral quandary. Yeah. And you know, again, you're talking about like a preemptive war with the Klingons. It was in Marcus's idea of like, okay, yeah, we have this terrorist attack from this other guy, but you know, I really want to go to war with the Klingons because I think they're like the big threat, and I want to. I don't.
Nearing the DS9, we're going to go to war with the Romulans anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We need to prep, take them down. Yeah.
And the speech.
Really well. Yeah.
The speech that Kirk gives at the end of the movie, where he says, there will always be those who mean to do us harm. To stop them, we risk awakening the same evil within ourselves. Our first instinct is to seek revenge when those we love are taken from us, but that's not who we are. Just like that little Kirk speech at the end alone. I was like, yeah, like this movie is actually like more thoughtful than a lot, like maybe any use of Section 31 to come after this, I think. I love that, like that self-critical approach to it. As much as like dumb plot stuff is in that movie, I still have like a lot of respect for it.
Yeah, I try to look for the good in it when I rewatch it. Not everyone does, and that's fine. And I like the Klingons in it too.
Yeah. Oh, I also think it has like the Michael Giacchino's score. I like of the three movies he's scored, I like that one the most. It kind of has like the most diversity, I think, as far as the music goes.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else on Section 31's role in Star Trek Into Darkness, though?
Well, here too, kind of like Disco, they make a giant Section 31 ship. So.
Yeah. So that is interesting. The idea that Marcus is worried about like this war with the Klingons in the Prime universe, like that war with the Klingons did happen though. So around the same time, this Star Trek Into Darkness is 2259. Star Trek Discovery season 1 is 2256 through 57. So I guess they didn't have the war in the Kelvin timeline.
But he also doesn't know about the Organians, because in the prime timeline, the possibility of war was going to be devastating, but the Organians stepped in. So
Yeah, and maybe that would have happened eventually in the Kelvin timeline.
you assume they're there somewhere. But
We see the Section 31 ships built in Discovery. So I'm wondering if that was kind of did they have like a secret base behind like the moon Io or something, like how they did in Star Trek Into Darkness. There are like some interesting parallels there as far as like Section 31 building up a fleet or having their own ships. But the other thing I guess is like I remember at the time in 2013 thinking it was so weird. Back when Section 31 was treated as such like a secret, Enterprise wouldn't even utter the words.
Yeah.
But then in Star Trek Into Darkness, I thought it was so weird when Marcus tells Kirk and Spock, he just says like, Section 31 is this part of Starfleet intelligence that we were trying to train officers and develop weapons, and he just like I was like, wow, he's just gonna like spill the beans to these two guys, but I guess he was also gonna send them on a mission to die, so he didn't care what they knew. But it's just funny, back in 2013 we thought that Section 31 had to be such a secret, or at least I did. I thought it had to be such a secret.
But apparently a lot of people like that secret.
Yeah.
Star Trek Discovery.
So Star Trek Discovery, I guess the first time it uses Section 31 is there's that black badge that we didn't really know what that was all about, and context is for kings. We were all kind of speculating like, oh, could that be Section 31? And then also it was like, but why would they be walking around with black badges?
Yeah. Because they're secret, you see? You can't see the black badge.
And then eventually, Lower Decks makes fun of that. But I think we can explain a lot of this. We also have that deleted scene at the season 1 finale. Will you take my hand? When Leland recruits Georgiou into Section 31 on Kronos.
I always forget that's deleted because it makes so much sense.
But then in the next time we have Section 31 in Discovery is in season 2, episode 3, Point of Light, when Georgiou, still on Kronos, recruits Tyler into Section 31. And so they're doing like major Prime Directive violating stuff here. It's like Bashir was so worried about them Section 31 picking who is going to be on the Romulan continuing committee. It's like here we have like Section 31 manipulating events to make sure L'Rell stays in the Chancellor's seat on Kronos.
Yeah, just straight up messing with regime change at the heads.
But when Georgiou brings Tyler onto the Section 31 ship and offers him the black badge, Tyler says, oh, I've heard of those, Section 31. So, Tyler was on the Discovery in season 1 for a little bit. But he says like he's never seen a black badge before, but he's heard about them. So here's my thinking about how can Section 31 be such a secret in Deep Space Nine when it's so big in Discovery? But really, the only people we see talk about Section 31 are Discovery personnel, and then some admirals, some brass, and then Sarek and Amanda, who we know, like Sarek and Amanda, they take like a big oath to like never talk about Michael Burnham at the end of the season, which I think was kind of unnecessary to explain that. But
high level intelligence clearance, because they might have heard about it.
But yeah, I think we can roll with, okay, what if Amanda and Sarek always knew about Section 31, but they just like never talked about it, and during the Klingon War, it seems that Section 31 was expanded and brought more into Starfleet, where it had like a group of admirals on a base giving orders, and also had all the other admirals in the fleet supplying reports to their threat assessment AI control. And the people on Discovery, though, Discovery was like this weird experimental science ship in season 1.
Secret too. The whole drive, the mushroom drive, is super secret too. So
yeah,
there was already a big air of secrecy for people on Discovery. So, and with Section 31 being brought into kind of the Starfleet chain of command, it seems to be under Cornwell's purview. But Cornwell was also in command of Lorca on Discovery.
But she seems to have like a lot of involvement with Section 31 because then at the end of the season, when they put Tyler in command, they say with the absence of Captain Georgiou or Admiral Cornwell, we want to make you the acting commander of Section 31. So Cornwell was involved in this Section 31 chain of command. So I'm under the impression that the people on Discovery knew, okay, we're going to have like these people on board with these black badges. Like, don't ask about it. Don't talk about it. Like, it was just kind of like this rumored thing of Section 31. But like, they didn't, beyond that ship or beyond like whatever ships on these secret missions in the Klingon War, I don't think it was public knowledge. And after just rewatching all of those Section 31 scenes in Discovery Season 2, I think that's like a good way of explaining it. Why how that secret that was, we know it was established before Enterprise, but it was still kept under wraps. Even though Section 31 was expanded during the Klingon War.
Yeah.
It seems like it wasn't public knowledge.
Yeah, that works too. Just like Discovery, it's a science ship, but it has a secret drive which helps win the war, which is completely under wraps.
But when Georgiou comes back aboard the Discovery in Spock's shuttle, and she has like the cover story that she is the prime Georgiou who's retired from Starfleet but working as like a contractor, like a consultant or something.
Rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. Yeah.
And Pike seems like he doesn't know it, but it turns out like he did know all along. But Pike is aware of Section 31, and Burnham, like, they immediately recognize it. But I think, I guess Pike could have been, we can say he was briefed by Cornwell.
Yeah.
But it's cool that Pike is so anti-Section 31. And really and truly, like, in these episodes, Leland, the Section 31 captain that we see a lot of, he's a straight up bad guy. Like, Leland does
pre-control.
Yeah, even pre-control possessing him, he was totally okay with tearing apart Spock's mind, torturing him to get like the information out of his brain. When Spock is finally it's kind of weird. It's kind of like dumb, dopey plotting again here. I'm sorry, Discovery Season 2, but we have like. Tyler is constantly talking about how like, oh, Section 31 is full of good people, and that's like a place where I can make a difference. But he's also like, Burnham, you can't trust Section 31. If they get their hands on your brother Spock, it's going to be bad news. And so there's kind of a contradiction there. And even like Burnham, she's like, I got to find Spock before Section 31. And then as soon as she finds Spock, Sark is like, well, I think it'll be okay if you turn him into Section 31. She's like, okay, I guess I will. But
okay, Dad.
But then Georgiou is the one who clarifies it to Burnham, like, no, you do not want your brother in the hands of these people. Leyland is just going to follow orders, and his orders are to rip apart Spock's mind, to get information on the Red Angel. Don't let them, put your brother's brain in this device. You got to go on the run. And that's why she goes off to Talos 4 to get Spock fixed. And even, like, there on Talos 4, Leyland comes there to get Burnham and Spock, and then Pike is like, no, you're not going to have them. They're coming with me. And they have to do that Telosian trickery. Yeah.
The illusions.
There's a funny line in there, though, when Georgiou says, oh, yeah, the Telosians tried that on me in the Mirror Universe, and I just blew up their planet and their stupid singing plants.
Not the singing plants.
But there's a lot that, going back and reflecting on all this stuff, there's a lot that I really don't like about Admiral Cornwell. There's the moment in Saints of Imperfection when Cornwell has that conversation with Pike and Leland aboard the Section 31 ship. And Cornwell says, Section 31 may not be the shining beacon of righteous conduct you want it to be, but they are a critical intelligence division, language that we'll hear in Picard soon. They are a critical intelligence division, and we have more pressing priorities than debating Article 14 of Starfleet's charter. Nation building is never pretty. That's the unappetizing truth, and you know it. And I actually disagree with that. I want to stick up a big middle finger to Cornwell. I don't think in our real world or in the Star Trek future, I don't think you need this shady off the books agency to build to secure your society. I think that's a no-no. So actually, like, I don't feel too bad about Cornwell like blowing up. I think she had some she needed like that Darth Vader redemption there at the end of season
it's
2.
too bad she blew up. I mean,
And it's also kind of silly how they
yes, yeah.
they framed that of like oh, just this door force field here will save Pike, but
It's bomb-proof, but
Cornwell still has to blow up.
yeah.
But yeah, good riddance, I say. Good riddance to a bad admiral.
Yeah.
A bad admiral. Yeah, she's a bad admiral. But there's some fun drama in season 2 too between Pike and Tyler. Like, I like them. That conflict between the two of Pike doesn't trust, like he gets mad at him for just even being on the ship when he's assigned there as a Section 31 liaison.
Yeah.
I always have a hard time with that word, but he's like,
I used to. Well, I'm a Klingon, but not anymore. It's fine, guys. It's fine.
he's like, on my bridge, you'll speak only when spoken to and stuff like that. But then like Tyler gets a few lines back at him and he's like, some of us didn't sit out the war. Some of us were torn apart by it and stuff like that. But we eventually get the Section 31 base in the episode Project Daedalus, where we see like Control, their AI is housed there, and
Yes.
which turns out to be like a big mistake. It kind of makes me think, you hear about the United Healthcare CEO who got assassinated, but one of the big reasons why a lot of people are like pissed off at United Healthcare is that they use AI to figure out what claims to deny. And it's like, man, that's as crazy as like
So no
Section
one can be
31
blamed.
using Control to make decisions when that. It's like the first time we see like non-humans involved in Section 31, though. Like, we have that Admiral Patar in command, and they kind of do. I think it's kind of lazy, but early Discovery would always like, if they were going to show aliens, there would be like one human, one Vulcan, one Endorian, and one Tellarite, and that's who like the admirals commanding Section 31. Like, that's who they are. But
I'll address the chat. Yeah, I really like Cornwell as a character, and I really, really love the actress. Especially, she has that YouTube show, BioTruckee and the Admiral with Mohammed Noor, and she's an amazing actress, and I like the character. But some of the things she did, don't like, and you can see why her character did it. She was spooked by the war with the Klingons. She was worried.
Well, she also wanted to genocide the Klingons in season 1.
Yes, because she was worried. I'm not saying that's okay. It's not. But
yeah, Cornwell's a war criminal. I liked the performance. I liked the actor a lot. But
oh yeah, good.
yeah, Cornwell is pretty terrible. That was one of my big problems with season 1 of Discovery too. Is like Sarek was on board with that. He does kind of admit that it was a mistake though, so I guess good on him. But
yeah.
But yeah, I side against Cornwell. I side with Burnham when she's like, no, this is a mistake. It's more of like what Pike talks about when Pike stands up to Cornwell in Project Daedalus, when he says, giving up our values in the name of security is to lose the battle in advance.
Yes.
I think that's really cool that when they find like that base, the old penal colony, though, it was protected by mines, and Pike is so freaked out by that. He's like, but we don't use mines in the Federation, and I like that. Because like in real life, like mines cause a lot of trouble. Like we have mines from from old wars left over,
and they put them around fruit trees. So 20 years later, starving people have to go try to eat, and then they lose their legs. Yeah.
But I like. When Cornwell is like, well, we didn't build the mines. I assume they were just moved to the station. But it's like, well, that doesn't make it better. I get like where Pike is coming from. And even there, like, I think Cornwell kind of knows that like Pike is right, because she's like, yeah, well, that's why we had the Enterprise sit out the war. This is when like that truth comes out. Is like, we wanted like the best of us to survive if anyone was going to. So that was going to be you, Captain Pike. So she kind of admits there that like, yeah, like my ways of doing things are wrong, and that if the Federation was going to be destroyed, then you're the one who deserves to be spared, and I'm the one who should go down with it. So I like that admission from her.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
But so they also mention later in the episode Through the Valley of Shadows when they find Burnham's old shipmate Cameron Gant from the Shinjo. He's actually under control from Control, but before that's revealed, and he's just talking about how like, oh, after the Shinjo, I went to work for Section 31 because I supported the mission of using Control to stop the next war before it happens, and so we see like why there would be like this big buildup and support for Section 31 and for like their AI control, because the Klingon War was so devastational in season 1. So I do buy into that. It makes sense.
It tracks. It could work. It's not good, but yeah.
But I guess the moral of the story being that like it got out of hands by the end of the season. Pike actually says when they do like that debrief in San Francisco in the series finale, Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2, Pike says, Section 31, whether by error or corruption, took its eye off the ball and is indirectly responsible for this catastrophe. Talking about Control itself. Yes. So even in season 2 of Discovery, Section 31 are still the bad guys. Yes. At the end of the day, at the end of the season. But before that, though, I guess one thing I also wanted to mention was the Red Angel stuff. After they find that Control had gone rogue at their Section 31 HQ. So I guess this is like the end of Section 31 HQ. It just existed for this brief time after the Klingon War, perhaps. Then it can go back
before that and just.
Yeah, or they might have had a HQ again and then lost it again a few times. But by the time Dr. Bashir in Deep Space Nine, it sounds like there is no Section 31 headquarters. And all of this stuff, it is believable that it could be kept, off the books, out of public knowledge. Just people like on the crew of the Discovery and other people that are working in very like confidential missions would know about it. Yeah. But the Red Angel stuff, after they find out about Control has gone rogue, Leyland does team up with Pike and the Discovery to help capture the Red Angel. And we find out the Leyland is so motivated to get his hands on the Red Angel to track it. He's trying to track down Spock so that he can track down the Red Angel, because it is part of what was it? Project Daedalus. That's what it was.
That's why it's called
Burnham's parents. We kind of like that revealed like, oh, this is what really happened to your parents. This is why they died. So it turns out that Mike Burnham and Gabriel Burnham were Section 31 people. They were trying to create the Red Angel time travel suit, which is weird for Star Trek, but the way it was powered, it sounds like it was kind of hard to pull this off. You needed a Klingon time crystal, hard to acquire, and you had to charge it up with a supernova, a rare event. But Leland worried about tracking down this mission, this old project from his past. Also sounds like he was involved with a lot of things that didn't go according to plan. Like Georgiou at one point points out to him, I know about that incident from 6 years ago with the what you did to the wrong ambassador on Deneva.
Oops.
So it sounds like, did he like assassinate the wrong person? Like that's kind of a big goof. That's a big whoopsie. But in that conversation, Leland points out that Section 31 has court-martials. So I guess
that was interesting, because you think they would just, is that like just a prelude to your execution? Say a few words, or...
But we can assume it's in like this very brief period of time where Section 31 was expanded during and post the Klingon War.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously super expanded. And like Into Darkness, they have resources. A lot of resources, which not so much in Deep Space Nine. They have some, but not like they don't have a secret base. It's mined with illegal mines. And
But after Control is defeated and the Discovery goes into the future, you get that conversation with Starfleet Command and Tyler. When Starfleet Command, the voice, we don't really see the face of the person talking, but the voice says, "We agree the organization requires a radical overhaul and perhaps far more transparency." And then they put Tyler in command. And they say, in the absence of Georgiou and Cornwell, why I was thinking that Cornwell is clearly, tied to Section 31. But so the Tyler commanded Section 31. I think that was clearly, set up for when Section 31 was going to be a TV show and not a made-for-streaming movie. It sounded like Shazad Latif was going to come back for that, but
it always reminded me of Angel, like when they get put in charge of Wolfram and Hart in the later season. It was like, you could do that with Tyler in charge of it.
This is where I kind of have a hard time smoothing these events over and making it make sense. Connecting from Discovery to Deep Space Nine when Tyler is told that, okay, you're going to get to command Section 31 and it's going to have a radical overhaul and far more transparency because...
How many years is that exactly? It's like 30, 40?
From when to when?
End of Season 2 Discovery to the Dominion War, Deep Space Nine.
So the end of Discovery Season 2 is 2157, and then the Dominion War is 74, I think?
I think so.
So
plenty of time for things to change.
Yeah, so over that course of time, over those decades, it sounds like despite Tyler being promised that Section 31 under his command could get more transparency, it clearly does not. It goes the opposite direction. By the time of Deep Space Nine, it has become much, much less transparent and less oversight.
But less bases and it's giant starships. So.
But let's talk about... before we talk about post Deep Space Nine, did you have anything else to say about Discovery's depictions of Section 31?
I think we covered it mostly. I can't think of anything offhand.
So the next time Section 31 is mentioned is in Lower Decks and Picard. Let's talk about Picard first.
Okay.
But they mention it a lot in the episode The Bounty. I complain about this a lot. This is one of my least favorite things in modern Trek. As much as I actually really love that episode, The Bounty. I really love Season 3 of Picard, and specifically this episode, The Bounty. But there's the conversation in there when Raffi, Riker, and Worf sneak onto Daystrom, the Daystrom station, the off-site station. Raffi says, it's home to Starfleet's most off-the-book tech. So Starfleet doing secret off-the-book stuff. And there's a conversation that Riker and Worf has where Worf... when Raffi asks, what exactly are they storing here? And Worf replies, many of Section 31's most nefarious table scraps, it would seem. That's kind of a weird line. Section 31's table scraps. Like the things that...
Good enough, but...
Yeah, Section 31 doesn't want, they turn over to Starfleet, maybe. But
like Kirk's corpse.
Yeah, or a Genesis device. Yeah. But Riker says Section 31, and then this is when I complain about this line a lot, but Worf says, yes, a critical division of Starfleet intelligence, which I don't like. I don't like that's the way that Worf views Section 31. I want him to view it the way we talked about earlier on Deep Space Nine when Dr. Bashir and Sisko were like, no, this is a terrible thing that shouldn't exist in the Federation, and we need to get rid of it.
Yeah, but see, I never knew how to take that. Do you take that as that's what people who've been in Starfleet a long time think, or just Worf because he likes to launch weapons at the enemy, and he always Next Generation we should fire phasers. Is that where he likes it? I don't know. It was unclear.
Well, here I'm gonna do some fan theory crafting here, but
it needs it. I think
my theory for this is that Similarly to how Section 31 was folded more into Starfleet during the Klingon War in Discovery, I think something similar happened. I mean, like, there's a lot of evidence for it, like with Ross in Deep Space Nine, but the same thing kind of happened in the Dominion War. And in Picard, we learn about these experiments that happened on the Daystrom station. So and for me, it's a lot easier for me to sleep at night if I blame those 10 changelings that got experimented on, if that's Section 31 and not so much Starfleet.
Yes. You get the feeling watching that season that that's true, but it's not specific.
But I think after the Dominion War, after Bashir learns about Section 31, it does start to become more public knowledge, because we do have Boimler mentioning Section 31 in 2380. In 2380, in the episode Envoys, when what we were talking about earlier, the joke about power walking, like Section 31 does this to conserve energy. Also, Sneed the Ferengi in season 3 of Picard, about 20 years later. But Sneed the Ferengi tells Raffi, like, oh, you smell like Starfleet, Federation, Section 31. So I think at this point, post-Dominion War, Section 31 is public knowledge. And unfortunately, there were some people in Starfleet who, under the stress of the Dominion War, under the stress of the Breen attack on HQ, they did get on board with Section 31 or started diverting resources to Section 31. Yes. And that's why we get things like the 10 changelings that were experimented on. But like, I guess, like, Admiral Marcus working with Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, I do like that it comes back to bite them in the ass, that it's like, no, that was wrong to do that.
Like all the real world examples, like putting deposing the Iranian government in the 50s or whatever. The Shah. That worked real well for everyone in the world. But
yeah, regime change like that is probably not a good idea. It is very counter to Star Trek's Prime Directive, which we can argue the Prime Direct, like maybe there's too much reverence for the Prime Directive.
Non-interference of the low technology, but the other part, non-interference in sovereign worlds, even with war, they could maybe do. They should concentrate on that half more, and not your transportation isn't up to snuff.
Worf also says in that episode, The Bounty, he says, during the war, he's talking about the Dominion, during the war, they attacked the Federation with deception and might, and we retaliated with a Starfleet-made virus. There are scars and shame on both sides. So,
there's no honor on either side. He's right.
It's just weird that they say Starfleet-made virus instead of like Section 31-made virus, but Starfleet did decide not to deliver the cure.
Yeah.
So, maybe it was, if my theory is correct, if it is more like Section 31 being brought more into Starfleet during the war, the few people who know about it decide like, okay, we need to divert more official resources to Section 31 in order to win the war.
Yeah, it might be back to more being part of Starfleet intelligence.
Right. And
completely separate. I mean, it's still doing its own thing, but it's involved with intelligence people who are probably working for both.
Yeah, and there could have been Starfleet resources that went into making that virus. But I do like in that same scene when Picard points out that Starfleet did deliver a cure to the Great Link. Shaw says, well, not without weaponizing a few zealots in the process. So it's critical of that type of behavior. But in the episode Dominion, we get Vadic's backstory where she talks about how Starfleet withheld the cure. She kind of doesn't give Bashir and O'Brien credit. I wouldn't expect a changeling to there, but I mean, she says Starfleet withheld the cure, and she says one of our own had to steal it, which is not quite how Odo came about acquiring the cure, but
that fits though, because I'm sure Odo told everyone the whole story, but did they really listen in the Great Link? And because they're really mad at the Federation for doing this to begin with. So.
Oh, and it's also interesting that the project to create the experimental changelings that would be more perfect spies, able to be less detectable, that was called Project Proteus. So we have Project Daedalus, Project Proteus. The people in Section 31 naming the projects fans of Greek mythology.
Yes.
But
And there's no lessons about hubris in Greek mythology. So.
at the time, it did kind of bother me in Star Trek Picard season 3 how they would use Section 31 and Starfleet kind of interchangeably, and I think it's more of just kind of this modern era of Star Trek. I think it's not even like the shows, like the writers' rooms making these choices. I think it's more of like a big branding decision with Star Trek, but like they want Section 31 to be like, oh no, this is just like Starfleet Black Ops, and that's what it is. It's like the Federation CIA, and don't worry about it. That's all it is, and different depiction from what we're used to in the old days. But I think we can make it all make sense for a just the internal history of the universe and make it all work within continuity. We just got to figure out how we got from Tyler being put in command of Section 31 at the end of Disco season 2, being told like, okay, it's going to be more transparent, and then clearly, based on Deep Space Nine, that is not the direction that things go.
Yeah.
But like people were pointing out in the live audience, though, I saw Starfleet Sohel mention like, yeah, that's over 100 years, and yeah, plenty of time, like you were saying too, Joel. So it could have gotten more transparent than less transparent a few times over the decades.
Yeah, it's just like the whole Lost era. Was it all Monster Maroons, or did they have like clown outfits in the middle? We don't know yet.
Anything's possible. I mean, Starfleet does like to change uniforms a lot. So the Monster Maroon is probably the most unique Starfleet uniform. So it's odd that that's the one that they stuck with the longest. But well, we need to mention a little bit of the Section 31 stuff in Star Trek Lower Decks. But did you have anything else to say about Section 31 in Star Trek Picard?
I think we covered it all.
Well, Star Trek Lower Decks, they did mention Section 31 in the second episode, Envoys, like I mentioned, which that seemed weird to me at the time in 2380, that people were just like, out on the street talking about Section 31, just these two ensigns on a California class. But perhaps it is more public knowledge post-Dominion War, like I suggested. And then in Season 3, Episode 8, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxus, that's when William Boimler, the Boimler transporter clone on the Titan, fakes his death by neurocene gas and is recruited into Section 31 and is given the black badge by some woman. We don't see her face, but
yeah.
She says, "Welcome, William. Starfleet now considers you a dead man." And I love this gag when he's like, "Hey, why would we wear like these black badges though? Like, why would we have like, if we're the secret organization, why would we have these badges? That are so recognizable?" And she says, "You could still be dead." And that's when he gives like that evil laugh.
Yes. He's like, no, never mind.
That episode, kind of the way that it ended on that tease, made me think that we would see William Boimler as an antagonist at some point, doing some nefarious Section 31 stuff. But instead he has like a pretty benevolent mission. He becomes a captain of the Anaximander.
Yes. And doing good work.
Yeah.
That it's not evil.
So we see him in the penultimate episode of the show, Fissure Quest, when he's giving that log entry at the beginning. It's fun. Like, I like that he won't mention Section 31. He says, "I can't say the name of the organization in my log, but we're on a mission, and we're on a mission to find whoever is trying to destroy the multiverse." So, now, why would Section 31 be working on this multiverse mission? And that's the question I was asking myself. And we also saw Section 31. Assuming Cornwell is Section 31. She wanted to classify the mirror universe way back in season 1 of Discovery. They want alternate universe stuff kept secret for some reason. That's a priority for them. The reason we were given in Discovery is that, we just had like a really bad war where a lot of people died, and if people learned that their lost loved ones were alive, if they were alive in another universe, it would be like disastrous. Everyone would want to like go over there and get their lost loved one, which that always felt like kind of a weird excuse. So I think it would make more sense if there's just some other reason why Section 31 wants to keep the multiverse like under wraps.
fallout from the MCU wars of the 21st century.
Yeah. Well, again, like William Boimler, I can understand having the multiverse fatigue. I feel that way sometimes with some of the popular franchises and entertainment lately, but I feel like Lower Decks handled it well, and I'm glad that they used that as an opportunity to wrap up the William Boimler stuff that they teased in Crisis Point too.
Yeah, which they let sit forever, and then you're like, then we're like 3 episodes left. Are they what? Huh? And then they did. Mike, you're amazing.
But that's all there is of Section 31 in Lower Decks. Again, that we know of. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Levick in engineering on this. He might be a Section 31 agent for all I like. That's a fun thing, is that you can kind of like look through Star Trek and just. A lot of people think that Star Trek 6, Admiral Cartwright conspiring with the Klingons to maintain hostilities is Section 31. I've always enjoyed that. I think the novels have actually gone with that in beta canon, but
yeah, there's a lot of novels, but so I'm very behind in novels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't read too many Star Trek novels. There's a lot of great ones out there, but
500 or something.
It's something that like I heard Larry Nemechek say a long time ago, that he like tries to avoid the novels because he wants to keep up with what's like the actual canon. He doesn't want to get like the lines blurred. And I used to think that was weird, but now like I kind of feel that way too with so much new Star Trek coming at us. And I'm great to have it, but all this new stuff in production. If I'm reading some of the novels, sometimes I do kind of like, oh, did I read that in a book, or was that in like a season of one of these shows? You know, it does kind of blur.
I don't mind getting mixed up like that. I just don't have the time to read all the novels.
But you've been keeping up with the comics, which have been really cool. So they've done some Section 31 stuff in the comics as well. But
yes, I can't remember. They did so much stuff in the comics. And
yeah,
there was actually a recent comic where they have O'Brien feeling really bad about mining the wormhole, and he's trying to get rid of these other mines. I thought that was a great callback.
Oh yeah, speaking of Starfleet and the Federation being anti-mine, which I like having in canon, even if Cornwell did bend the rules there, but I guess that's all that we know about Section 31 that is in canon on screen.
For 1 week. That's everything.
Yes, and then in 1 week we'll have a brand new movie with new Section 31 lore to talk about, starting with Rachel's first reaction stream. So again, watch Section 31 on Paramount Plus as soon as you can.
What's the runtime? I looked it up. I can't remember.
Is that public knowledge yet?
It's not on Letterboxd yet, so I don't know. Don't say anything. I have not watched it, audience, but
it's rated PG-13. We know the rating on it, so
yeah, that came out a while ago. That stuff's early.
If you were hoping to see more Klingon boobies and hear multiple F words in Star Trek again, unfortunately, Section 31 will not have that. But it will have Michelle Yeoh doing cool kung fu moves. That's in the trailer. It'll have like the ragtag group of other Section 31 operatives. We got a Delton, a Vulcanoid, I forgot how to say it. Cameloid, the shapeshifter from Star Trek 6. But yeah, so check out Rachel's stream after you watch Section 31 on January 25th. We'll have a first reaction stream on YouTube only. So podcast audience, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then the following week, our deep dive discussion. Again, people that are watching live on Friday, though, just another reminder, tomorrow we have our Patreon watch party, 3:30 p.m. Central, where we are watching the original Section 31 episode, Indiscretion. And also, later tonight, Starfleet Sohel will be live on the After Dark show. So it's going to go live at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central. So in about an hour, wherever you are, if you're watching us live, be sure to go check out the After Dark show. I'm going to be there. Joel's going to be there. Sohel's going to be there.
The triumphant return of After Dark.
So really looking forward to that. Oh, and I gotta shout out Aaron for mentioning they should have gone with Vendorian. Yeah, no, Aaron, maybe like Vendorians or the Tal Shiar's shapeshifters, because the Romulans were using that one in the animated series. So maybe Section 31 uses Cameloids, Tal Shiar uses Vendorians.
Yeah, there was a heated lunch where they divided up the shapeshifters. I'd like to imagine. They're probably very nice, and that's not true, but...
But thank you so much, everyone who was able to join us in the live audience. And thank you so much, everyone watching or listening to this later. And I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts on the Section 31 movie in 2 weeks during our deep dive discussion. But until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.